Tired of the same old at business events? Well, this is not the same as last year, the podcast where we blow up the boring and lead the charge into the attendee-first era of business events. I'm Clare Forestier, a business event MC obsessed with transforming audiences from passive observers into dynamic participants at events. Each week we'll challenge the conventions, share actionable tips, and hear from fellow event rebels who are mastering the engagement game. Imagine your attendees begging for more after your next event. That's the magic of prioritising their experience. Ready to ditch the dull and create corporate events your audiences will rave about? Then you've found your tribe. Join the movement. Welcome to Not the Same as Last Year. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Not the Same as Last Year. I'm Clare Forestier and I am a professional business host here today on this podcast to talk about the attendee and ways to help them have the best experience at your next event. Now, really this episode is a question to you, whether you work in internal events or events for clients, but it's whether your events can honestly claim to be serving the attendee first. Now, as this is my first podcast episode, I'm going to start by telling you about myself and my background, because it all plays into it. But before I do that, I'm going to ask you to think in your head about the top priority that you have when you organise an event. Now, be honest, is it one of these? How are you going to look from the event? Whether you are going to do a good job, whether your boss or your client is going to be pleased, whether your audience is going to applaud your efforts. So while you ponder this in your subconscious, I want to share a bit about me. So I'm an event host, but I also answer to MC, moderator, conference presenter, and so on. There isn't actually a definitive industry term on my role yet. It still seems elusive. Now, I got into this job after a career as a broadcast journalist. I worked mainly as a freelancer, reporting, producing, and presenting news programs. And I also, as I was a freelancer, worked in media training and presentation training. And I met someone during that who worked for an organisation running virtual business conversations. This was 6 years before COVID, by the way. And they needed experienced journalist types to host the conversations to keep them non-salesy, focused and exciting, just like great radio can be. And it was a challenge that really appealed. So I went into it, and then I moved from there into hosting and facilitating engagement dinner events, and then into larger events, conferences and the like. And I now host every kind of business event, from webinars to in-person association meetings, trade show stages, corporate conventions, multi-hub hybrid conferences, etc. So far, so clear. I changed careers, but how has that led to this obsession with attendee first that I have? Well, I went from a broadcast news background into the event industry, and although the skills I need in events are similar to those that I picked up in radio and TV, they're actually very different entities. So I came from a background where the listener or the viewer was literally the priority, where who was listening and watching and for how long and why has actually been measured for a long time in broadcast. We know that while listening and watching us, the listener and the viewer is doing lots of other things often at the same time. So we always knew we had to work hard to keep their attention. And as soon as the technology allowed, we knew that we needed to make them feel heard and involved. User-generated content became a really big thing. Social media and what people were following became a key part of the news stories that we would choose to cover. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing in a country that wants to have a free and independent press, but it does prove that we listen to those that are listening and watching us. Phone-ins, text-in, voice notes, all these kind of things are a huge part of the radio and TV news content now, and indeed in news, because we know the value of letting the audience be heard. But I couldn't believe it when I've entered the event industry and saw this actually wasn't really happening yet. And even post-pandemic, it seems we all went back into the room to the same old, same old. The concept of what drives the attendee and what they really, really want is achingly absent in many conversations and events. I feel we talk about attendee engagement, but solely for the impact it's going to have on how much they get involved and whether the event looks successful, but not because we really understand and care and want to improve the attendee experience. I think little effort is being truly paid to the audience's experience and how they're individually going to feel and how that will play into what they're going to do as a result of coming to the event. This ethos really continues to permeate most event organizer client conversations. I think many clients just seem to think shortening session times, getting an event app, regardless of whether it is actually needed or anyone knows how to use it, and turning some presentations into panel discussions is groundbreaking enough. Now, as an event supplier, I am often sent a draft document for the event I'm about to host, but it'll still have last year's date on it. And then, of course, this event is going to be a generic rinse and repeat event where the organisation is applying the SAL methodology, which Sally, same as last year methodology, which basically refers everyone to the prior year to follow that same procedure or way of thinking. It's simple, it's easy, it feels safe, but it keeps the bar low. And then the expectations remain low among attendees who have sort of become used to events like this. So from ranting about this on social media, I am starting to see there are others out there embracing this concept, but it still feels very new in business events. And I've started this podcast because, quite frankly, I just don't think it's happening quickly enough. It certainly is not fed through to the average client holding an event. So let's talk about the default business event that everybody recognizes. Terms like plenaries, keynotes, panels, and fireside chats are common. Attendees are generally watching passively, either in rows like in a theatre or around large hotel tables, allocated, if they're lucky, 5 or 10 minutes to ask questions at the end of each session. Before they go to another plenary, panel, keynote, or fireside chat, they may have a few 20-minute breaks here and there, maybe every couple of hours, in which they've literally got time to run to the loo, grab a coffee, and if they're really lucky, have a perchance encounter in the hallway where they could get to exchange very quick small talk with a stranger and pass on a business card or a LinkedIn handle in the random hope of it leading to tangible business. The days at these events are jam-packed, full of a lot of content and meetings, and you usually go home pretty exhausted to an inbox full of emails that you couldn't deal with during the event, and within a week, you have probably forgotten most of the things you learnt at the event. So we just painted a picture of that familiar business event format. But let's be honest, is it really cutting it anymore? Now, we're going to be talking over the next few weeks and months of this podcast about all of this in a lot more detail and about ways we can change things. But for starters, here are 5 reasons why I think that model is falling short. 1, information overload and retention roadblock. Cramming of sessions back to back is just going to create a mental traffic jam for most of us. We get tired human beings. We struggle to absorb all that information. If we don't get time for reflection or discussion, those key takeaways and insights generally and easily slip away. 2, the networking nightmare, because let's be honest, true networking, true meeting of minds with people is more than just awkward small talk over lukewarm wine in a crowded room or a chance lucky encounter with the perfect person. It really is making crucial connections up to luck, to chance. It actually also discriminates against a large number of people, particularly introverts, and it needs careful consideration and attention to really work for all the attendees. 3, quantity versus quality. I'm afraid it is a flawed formula. Yes, I understand the desire to cram agendas to bursting point to justify the cost and time that attendees are investing. But it's so important to remember value isn't just about how much information you throw at people. It is also about the quality of the experience. 4, The balance, this has to be right. A well-designed event is going to balance a focused agenda with enough downtime. Without it, you are not going to be creating an environment that is really conducive to learning, networking, and personal growth. And the old model, which relies on experts talking at a passive audience, when attendees actively engage, they're going to retain information better and have a more memorable experience. 5, our attendees are getting a lot more sophisticated and deserve more. The traditional lecture style event might have worked in the past, but I really believe today's attendees are craving events for interaction, connection, and the chance to truly apply what they're learning. So you might ask, well, things are slowly changing. You mentioned sessions are shorter and people are starting to talk about this. It's going to happen. What's the rush to change it all so quickly? Well, let's just talk at this moment about live in-person events. Think about it. The world is on fire, people. Global warming is a reality you cannot deny. The push towards sustainability is inescapable, and business events are huge carbon footprints due to travel, venue energy use, and waste generation. The beefing up of global regulations like the EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive mean more businesses are going to have to disclose information about their sustainability, their due diligence process, and the actual and potential negative effects of their operations. And this includes Scope 3 emissions, and that includes business travel. This transparency is going to force them to acknowledge the environmental impact of events that involve travel, and they are going to look for ways to reduce their business travel footprint. And of course, this is going to impact which events people choose to go to in person and which online. And I'm telling you now, people are going to choose the events in person that put them and their experience first. You're going to have to work even harder to get them to choose your event. You're going to have to consider their needs and their issues and fulfill all the reasons that they chose to go to your event. And if you don't do that, your event is going to fail. It is that simple. So let's go back to the question I asked you to mull over in your subconscious at the beginning of this episode. What is usually your top priority when you organise an event? Now, whether in honesty, it was whether you look good to your boss or your audience or your clients, I hope now that your answer in future is going to be, my priority is the attendee experience. And if so, welcome to the attendee-first era of events. And if not, well, either way, keep listening to find out how to make your event attendee-first. And I'm going to tell you this, it's not just about being forced to do this, it's actually good not only for the attendee, but it's going to help you when you plan your events in future. Once you work out and you clarify exactly what your audience is coming to your event for, you're going to know, I need to make them feel this. I need to inspire these emotions so that they feel they've achieved their goals. And that just helps my objective, because regardless of budget, strategy, or client's goals, it's going to mean that every time you have to make a choice, an investment, a decision regarding your event, you just look back to, is it going to deliver the emotion we need? And that's your decision made for you. And then, of course, you are designing an event that is going to feed your attendees' desires. If the event fulfills their needs and dreams, they are going to exhibit the exact behavior you want them to do. And that ensures your objective for putting on the event is met. Now, the key for me lies in recognizing that each attendee is more than just someone at the party. They need to own an integral part of the event story. But we'll talk about that more in future episodes, because one of my goals for this podcast is to keep the episodes short and sweet. I know how busy an event planner's life is. So we are nearly at time for this episode. And today we've explored the importance of attendee-centric events and how prioritizing the attendee experience can be the key to success in a sustainability-conscious world. Please join me for the next episode looking at how you get your whole team to buy into the attendee-first era of events. And there you have it. I hope you're inspired to revolutionize the attendee experience at your next event. Ready to dive deeper? Download your free guide, 5 ways to elevate your attendee experience without breaking the bank. The link is in the show notes. Subscribe to Not the Same as Last Year podcast, connect with me, Clare Forestier, on LinkedIn, or visit my YouTube channel for even more tips and insights to make your events a hit with your attendees. Don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback is going to fuel my mission. Stay tuned next week for another episode packed with inspiring ideas and practical strategies to put your attendee first.